A cloud of suspicion surrounds the deaths of Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife.
We're following breaking news developments in the deaths of actor Gene Hackman and his wife, with investigators now calling those deaths suspicious.
Gene Hackman was a legend, a powerhouse in Hollywood known for his intensity and range. Across 6 decades, he delivered unforgettable performances, winning 2 Academy Awards, Best Actor for The French Connection and Best Supporting Actor for Unforgiven. From Superman to Hoosiers, he was a commanding force on screen, seamlessly shifting from hard-boiled detectives to unforgettable villains. In late February 2025, devastating news broke. Hackman, at 95, and his wife, 63-year-old Betsy Arakawa, were found lifeless in their Santa Fe home. A welfare check on February 27th led Santa Fe County deputies to a tragic scene. The couple, along with one of their dogs, unresponsive. Authorities swiftly confirmed his passing, and within hours, headlines around the world carried the shocking news. Donald Trump has been rumored to even get involved due to this suspicious death. Though it's not confirmed, many believe this death is no normal death. Hollywood and fans reacted instantly. Social media overflowed with tributes, highlighting his most iconic moments. Dustin Hoffman called him powerful, subtle, brilliant, a giant among actors. Tom Hanks simply wrote, "There has never been a Gene Hackman type. There has only been Gene Hackman." The flood of love and respect was a testament to a career and a man who left an indelible mark on cinema. The news of Gene Hackman's passing first surfaced on the evening of February 27, 2025. Santa Fe County Sheriff's deputies had been called to his home for a welfare check after days of no contact. What they found was devastating. Hackman, his wife Betsy Arakawa, and one of their dogs, all deceased. Authorities quickly confirmed the discovery, and within hours, the story spread like wildfire. Major outlets, from the Associated Press to Variety, broke the news, sending shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. Initial reports from law enforcement noted no clear signs of foul play, but the circumstances surrounding their deaths remained unexplained. By the next day, official confirmation came from Santa Fe County Sheriff Adan Mendoza. In a public statement, he announced that neither Hackman nor his wife appeared to have died violently. There were no immediate signs of forced entry, no struggle, and nothing to indicate a crime had taken place. Despite this, the unusual nature of the case left many questions unanswered, fueling speculation and concern. Authorities reassured the public that a full investigation was underway, with autopsies and toxicology tests expected to provide clarity in the days ahead. Shortly after the sheriff's statement, Hackman's family released their own response. His daughters, Elizabeth and Leslie, issued a heartfelt message to the public. "It is with great sadness that we announce the passing of our father, Gene Hackman, and his wife, Betsy. We will miss him sorely and are devastated by the loss." They went on to express their deep grief, emphasizing that while the world saw Hackman as a legendary actor, to them, he was simply Dad and Grandpa. They thanked fans for their overwhelming support and asked for privacy as they mourned. As the news continued to spread, Hollywood's biggest names paid their respects. Clint Eastwood, who directed Hackman in Unforgiven, called him an intense and instinctive actor, and a dear friend whom I will miss very much. Dustin Hoffman, a lifelong friend who had trained alongside Hackman in their early acting days, described him as a giant among actors, a man whose talent was unparalleled, whose presence on screen was nothing short of magnetic. More tributes followed. Directors, co-stars, and admirers from all corners of the industry reflected on Hackman's immense impact. Social media lit up with heartfelt messages, from heartfelt personal stories to reflections on his most iconic roles. Fans shared their favorite scenes, clips from The French Connection, Unforgiven, and The Royal Tenenbaums flooding timelines. Everywhere, a single sentiment echoed. Hollywood had lost one of its greatest, and the world felt emptier without him. With emotions running high, all eyes turned to the investigation. What had happened in that Santa Fe home? How could both Hackman and his wife have passed so suddenly? And what role, if any, did their surroundings or health conditions play? The lack of immediate answers left the public grasping for clarity, as authorities worked behind the scenes to uncover the truth. But one thing was certain: regardless of the details, Gene Hackman's legacy would endure. His name, his performances, and his impact on cinema would never fade. Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were found in their Santa Fe home on February 27, 2025. But evidence suggests they had been deceased for over a week. Authorities determined that their deaths likely occurred around February 17th, based on Hackman's pacemaker, which recorded its last activity that day. This discovery painted a chilling picture. The couple had been gone for 10 days before anyone realized. The secluded nature of their residence, tucked behind gates and away from frequent visitors, contributed to the delayed discovery. When officers entered the home, they found both bodies in advanced stages of decomposition, confirming that whatever happened had taken place days earlier, unnoticed by the outside world. Investigators noted that Hackman and Arakawa were found in different rooms. Hackman's body was near the kitchen's mudroom, while his wife was in a bathroom. Around her, a few unsettling details stood out. A prescription pill bottle, open with its contents spilled across the counter, and a small space heater nearby. Authorities theorized that Betsy may have collapsed suddenly while reaching for her medication, possibly knocking the heater over in the process. The absence of any external injuries or signs of a struggle reinforced the idea that their deaths were not violent. The home itself showed no forced entry, no signs of disturbance, nothing to suggest an outside force had entered their lives that evening. They had been wearing regular clothing, seemingly engaged in their nightly routines before something turned their quiet evening into a tragedy. Despite the unsettling nature of two people passing away within such a short time frame, the cause of death remained undetermined in the immediate aftermath. The New Mexico Chief Medical Investigator's Office conducted preliminary autopsies, but no obvious conclusions could be drawn. The most common environmental hazards were ruled out early. There was no presence of carbon monoxide in their systems, and inspectors found no gas leaks in the home. These findings eliminated one of the most common explanations for multiple deaths within a residence, leaving investigators to consider other medical possibilities. Both Hackman and Arakawa were elderly, Hackman at 95, Arakawa at 65. So natural causes remained a plausible theory. A sudden heart attack or stroke could have claimed one of them, but the odds of both suffering fatal medical events separately, yet nearly simultaneously, raised more questions. Given the presence of medication in the bathroom, investigators explored the possibility of an accidental overdose or a fatal reaction to prescription drugs. However, without toxicology reports, any conclusions remained speculative. Adding to the mystery, no suicide note was found, and there was no indication of self-harm or a deliberate act. One emerging theory was the domino effect, a situation where the medical crisis of one partner could have triggered a fatal response in the other. If Betsy suffered a sudden collapse, the shock and stress could have caused Hackman to experience cardiac arrest. Alternatively, if Hackman was the first to pass, his wife may have fallen ill from distress or even succumbed to a medical event while trying to seek help. Without a clear cause of death, These possibilities remained just that: theories. Forensic experts continued their analysis, running toxicology screenings and reviewing every possible angle to determine what had led to this tragedy. The world waited for answers, but in the meantime, the devastating reality remained. One of Hollywood's greatest legends and his beloved wife were gone, leaving behind a mystery that would take time to unravel. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office took immediate control of the investigation into the deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa. On February 28th, Sheriff Adan Mendoza held a press conference to address the growing public concern. He confirmed that there were no immediate signs of foul play, no forced entry, no visible injuries, no indications of struggle. Yet, the unusual circumstances surrounding the deaths of two people and their pet in the same home without an obvious cause meant law enforcement had to proceed with caution. A judge quickly signed a search warrant affidavit, classifying the case as suspicious enough to justify a thorough forensic examination of the property. Investigators were granted access to search the home for hidden clues, possible toxins, environmental hazards, or any substances that might explain what happened that night. As part of the investigative process, authorities systematically ruled out potential causes. The Santa Fe Fire Department and New Mexico Gas Company were called in to inspect the residence for carbon monoxide or gas leaks. None were found. This was a critical determination, as carbon monoxide poisoning is a common culprit in unexplained home deaths. With that ruled out, detectives turned their attention to other possible explanations. Hackman's pacemaker was also analyzed, essentially acting as a digital autopsy, confirming that his heart stopped functioning on February 17th. This data helped pinpoint a more accurate timeline of death and suggested the event had occurred suddenly rather than gradually. Detectives also focused on the scattered prescription pills found near Betsy Arakawa's body. Each medication was collected and cataloged for toxicology testing to determine whether an overdose, accidental or otherwise, could have played a role. Additionally, authorities retrieved electronic devices from the home, including cell phones and computers, to check for recent messages, searches, or indications of distress leading up to the incident. Despite this in-depth approach, no evidence of a violent struggle was found. The house showed no signs of forced entry, no broken locks or windows, and no suspicious activity recorded in any security systems. There were also no suicide notes or any written messages left behind, adding to the mystery. Sheriff Mendoza was careful in how he described the investigation. He clarified that labeling the case as suspicious did not mean a crime had taken place, only that the deaths were unexplained and required a thorough review before making any assumptions. While the lack of injuries and absence of an intruder pointed toward a medical or accidental cause, authorities did not want to overlook any possibilities. Mendoza assured the public that detectives were working closely with the Office of the Medical Investigator, awaiting full autopsy and toxicology reports before drawing any conclusions. At this stage in the process, there isn't anything obvious, Mendoza stated. The autopsy is going to tell us more. His words underscored the methodical nature of the investigation. Police would not speculate without medical findings to support any conclusions. As of the latest updates, no arrests had been made, no suspects were being pursued, and no outside parties were under investigation. The leading theory remained that the deaths resulted from a medical event or accident, but until the lab results provided a definitive answer, the case would remain open. If toxicology tests or further forensic analysis pointed toward foul play, the investigation would shift into a criminal case. However, if the final results revealed a non-criminal explanation, whether a hidden gas leak, an undetected carbon monoxide presence despite initial tests, or a tragic dual medical emergency, the case would be ruled an unfortunate accident. Law enforcement urged patience from the public, emphasizing that a case of this magnitude required careful scientific examination before any conclusions could be reached. For now, the mystery surrounding the deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa remained unanswered, leaving family, friends, and fans around the world waiting for the truth. Betsy Arakawa, Gene Hackman's wife of 34 years, passed away alongside him in what remains a deeply unsettling tragedy. A former classical pianist, she had been by Hackman's side since their marriage in 1991, dedicated not just to her own passions but to his well-being. She was discovered in the master bathroom, leading investigators to believe she may have been preparing for bed or handling her nightly medications when the fatal event occurred. The evidence around her told a tragic story: an open prescription pill bottle, pills scattered on the countertop, and a small space heater positioned nearby. Authorities theorized that Betsy may have collapsed suddenly, knocking over the heater in the process. What remains unclear is whether she was the first to suffer a medical emergency or if she was attempting to assist her husband in his final moments. The absence of any external injuries or signs of struggle suggested that whatever happened was abrupt and unexpected. Friends of the couple described Betsy as incredibly health-conscious, taking great care of her diet and maintaining a disciplined lifestyle. Those who knew her personally struggled to make sense of how such a tragedy could have unfolded, especially given her attentiveness to both her own health and Gene's. While the family has yet to publicly comment on Betsy's passing, she is being remembered as a devoted wife who shared Hackman's final chapter. In the wake of their deaths, Gene Hackman's surviving family has been left to process both their grief and the weight of settling his affairs. Hackman had 3 children from his first marriage, and his daughters, Elizabeth and Leslie, spoke on behalf of the family, describing their devastation and heartbreak. In a statement, they expressed how much Hackman meant to them, not just as a legendary actor, but as a father and grandfather. They have requested privacy while they mourn, though they remain actively involved in the investigation and legal proceedings. In the days following the news, Hackman's daughters were seen making arrangements to travel to New Mexico to assist with finalizing estate matters once the house was released from the investigation. Leslie Hackman briefly addressed the situation, stating that they need to wait and find out the full details from law enforcement before making any decisions. She acknowledged the daunting task ahead, noting that sorting through their father's affairs would be difficult given the circumstances. The family has refrained from speculating on the cause of death, instead choosing to focus on honoring Hackman's memory and awaiting official answers. Among the more heartbreaking details of this case was the discovery of the couple's pets. Hackman and Arakawa were known animal lovers, and their home was shared with multiple dogs. When authorities entered the residence, they found a deceased German Shepherd in a closet adjacent to the bathroom where Betsy had been found. It appeared as if the dog may have hidden or become trapped in the closet during the crisis. However, 2 of their other dogs were discovered alive and in stable condition. The presence of both deceased and surviving animals only deepened the mystery surrounding what had happened inside the home. If a toxic gas or environmental hazard had played a role, it likely would have affected all the animals, yet 2 survived. Investigators considered the possibility that the German Shepherd may have succumbed to dehydration or stress in the days following the owner's deaths, particularly if it had been locked away without access to food or water. While this theory has not been confirmed, authorities noted that the surviving dogs appeared to be in good health. Animal control officers assisted in ensuring their safety, and it remains unclear whether Hackman's family will take them in or rehome them. The image of the loyal dog trapped in a closet near its owner, struck a deep emotional chord with the public. Many found it especially heartbreaking that even the family pet was lost in this tragedy, while others found solace in the fact that at least 2 of the dogs were rescued. It was yet another piece of a devastating puzzle, one that, for now, remains incomplete. The news of Gene Hackman's death sent shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. The entertainment industry, from legendary directors to rising stars, paid tribute to one of cinema's greatest talents. Francis Ford Coppola, who directed Hackman in The Conversation, described him as a great actor, inspiring and magnificent in his work and in his complexity. He mourned the loss, but emphasized that Hackman's contributions to film would never be forgotten. Clint Eastwood, who worked with Hackman on Unforgiven, called him an intense and instinctual performer, adding, "He was also a dear friend whom I will miss very much." For those who knew him personally, Hackman's passing was deeply personal. Dustin Hoffman, his close friend since their early days as struggling actors in the 1950s, reflected on Hackman's journey from being dismissed in acting school to becoming one of the most respected names in the industry. He described him as powerful, subtle, brilliant, a giant among actors. These sentiments were echoed by directors and co-stars who had worked alongside him, all sharing their admiration for a man who never played the Hollywood game, but still became one of its greatest stars. The outpouring of grief extended far beyond Hollywood's elite. Social media became a living tribute to Hackman's extraordinary career. Tom Hanks's words captured the sentiment of many. "There has never been a Gene Hackman type. There has only been Gene Hackman." The post quickly went viral, with thousands agreeing that Hackman's talent was truly one of a kind. Viola Davis, Antonio Banderas, and countless others shared their admiration, while Josh Brolin called Hackman one of his greatest inspirations, writing that he was devastated by the news. Valerie Perrine, Hackman's Superman co-star, paid a simple but heartfelt tribute, tweeting, "Farewell, my sweet Lex." The British Academy of Film and Television Arts, BAFTA, also honored Hackman, acknowledging his brilliant career spanning 6 decades and his multiple BAFTA-winning performances. Fans followed suit, flooding forums and discussion boards with stories about how Hackman's films had influenced their love of cinema. Many shared clips of his most iconic moments: Popeye Doyle's relentless car chase in The French Connection, his commanding presence in Mississippi Burning, the humor of the Royal Tenenbaums, and his unforgettable portrayal of Lex Luthor. On Reddit and Twitter, threads dedicated to Hackman's career praised his unmatched ability to disappear into a role, with many calling him the greatest character actor to ever lead a film. As the tributes continued, Hackman's death remained a leading story across major news networks. ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN all ran special segments, airing retrospectives that celebrated his remarkable journey from an unknown actor to a 2-time Academy Award winner. Entertainment magazines, such as Variety and The Hollywood Reporter, published in-depth articles recounting his greatest performances, while international media, from the BBC to French and Japanese newspapers, covered the story, reflecting Hackman's status as a global icon. Beyond honoring his career, the media closely followed the ongoing investigation. Outlets like Yahoo News and Fox News provided updates on the circumstances surrounding his passing, reporting key details such as the pacemaker data confirming a February 17th death, and law enforcement's decision to treat the case as suspicious until proven otherwise. Medical experts weighed in on the available evidence, analyzing what might have led to the couple's deaths. Some speculated about possible toxic exposure, while others questioned the presence of the scattered pills found near Betsy Arakawa. Cable news programs brought in film critics and historians to reflect on Hackman's contributions to cinema, often playing clips of his most celebrated performances. While much of the media's focus remained on the investigation, these discussions ensured that Hackman's legacy as one of Hollywood's greatest actors remained at the forefront. His passing left behind unanswered questions, but one truth remained undeniable. Gene Hackman was a force of nature in film, and his influence would endure long after the headlines faded. Gene Hackman leaves behind a legacy that few in Hollywood can rival. Over 4 decades, he delivered performances that defined genres and set new standards for cinematic excellence. His career took off with Bonnie and Clyde in 1967, but it was the French Connection in 1971 that cemented his status as a powerhouse. His Oscar-winning turn as Detective Popeye Doyle showcased a level of intensity and realism rarely seen at the time. He followed it with unforgettable roles in The Poseidon Adventure, The Conversation, and Superman, where he crafted the definitive Lex Luthor. The 80s and 90s saw him expand his legacy even further. In Hoosiers, he inspired as the driven coach leading an underdog basketball team. In Mississippi Burning, he brought raw depth to a civil rights-era detective. Crimson Tide and Unforgiven proved his versatility. Whether playing an unyielding military officer or a grizzled outlaw, Hackman commanded every scene. His ability to shift between hardened authority figures, flawed everymen, and even comedic roles like the Royal Tenenbaums made him one of the most dynamic actors of his time. His 2 Academy Awards, multiple Golden Globes, and BAFTA honors are mere symbols of a career that shaped Hollywood itself. But perhaps what made Hackman so revered was his decision to walk away on his own terms. After his final role in 2004, he retired from acting and embraced a quiet life, turning to writing novels. He never sought the spotlight, never returned for one last performance. He simply let his body of work speak for itself. In doing so, he only deepened the respect his peers and audiences had for him. Gene Hackman stands in the company of legends. Often compared to Marlon Brando and Robert Duvall, he brought a rare authenticity to the screen, blending grit with vulnerability. Dustin Hoffman once said, "Hackman brought something unprecedented to our craft, a testament to his influence on generations of actors." Francis Ford Coppola called him magnificent in his work, emphasizing that while his passing is a loss, his artistry remains a reason for celebration. His characters, whether heroes, villains, or somewhere in between, have become etched into film history. Aspiring actors still study his performances, directors still reference his precision, and audiences still revisit his films, knowing they're in the presence of something truly special. Tom Hanks summed it up best. There has never been a Gene Hackman type. There has only been Gene Hackman. Hackman's career lasted over 40 years, yet his influence will last forever. His choice to leave Hollywood behind only reinforced the legend. An actor who gave everything to his craft and then simply stepped away. Now, in the wake of his passing, retrospectives, essays, and tributes flood in, ensuring that new generations will continue to discover his genius. In Hollywood's long and storied history, Gene Hackman's name stands among the greatest. A symbol of excellence, dedication, and authenticity, his presence on screen was unmatched. He may be gone, but through every film, every unforgettable role, and every performance that still leaves audiences in awe, Gene Hackman remains immortal.